What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I'm going to talk about my 3 favorite current bowling balls. These are the 3 bowling balls that I absolutely never leave the house without, no matter the pattern. Now, these 3 bowling balls don't necessarily build an entire arsenal, but these are the 3 bowling balls that I have the most confidence in and the ones that I know that I can find a way to score with. And let me just tell you, it is official. I have a new favorite all-time bowling ball. And I can't believe I'm finally saying that on camera. If you guys like this video, I would super appreciate it if you hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date every time I drop a new video. And if you like this jersey or any of the jerseys in any of my videos, you can head on over to logoinfusion.com or iambowling.com and use my promo code Lewis, and that'll get you 20% off your entire order. And then, as always, down below in the description, I have links to everything that I used to make this video. The first ball we're going to take a look at is the Jackal Legacy. Now, the Jackal Legacy has been featured a lot recently because it's our newest asymmetrical solid bowling ball. It features the Predator V2 core, which has an RG of 2.47, a differential of 0.054, and an intermediate differential of 0.015 in 15 pounds. Then wrapped around that Predator V2 core is the Coercion MXC solid reactive cover that comes out of box at a 2000 grit laser scan sand. And then with the layout on this one is the pin down one that I really like is 45 by 4 3/8 by 65. And now the next ball that we're going to take a look at used to be my favorite ball of all time until very, very recently. It's the Venom Shock. Now, the Venom Shock, you guys know all about it already. You guys know how much I hyped this ball up and how much I believe that everyone needs one. It features the gear core, which has an RG of 2.48 and a max differential of 0.034 in 15 pounds. Wrapped around that gear core is the Turmoil medium friction solid cover that comes out of box at a 4000 grit laser scan sand. And then with the layout on this particular Venom Shock is 40 by 4.5 by 20. The last ball on this list is the Desert Tank. Now, the Desert Tank is officially my favorite bowling ball of all time. I've been saying it since I first drilled this Desert Tank that it was truly something special for me. It matches my game so well. And I've been saying it since the beginning that eventually it was going to become one of my favorite bowling balls of all time, if not my favorite. And here I am today saying that it is officially my favorite bowling ball of all time. Now, the Desert Tank features the Flux core, which has an RG of 2.57 and a max differential of 0.015 in 15 pounds. And then wrapped around that Flux core is that magical cover, the Friction Plus Pearl microcell cover that comes out of box at a 2000 grit laser scan sand. And then the layout for this particular Desert Tank is 45 by 4 by 25. Let me know down below in the comments if you have either the Jackal Legacy, the Venom Shock, or the Desert Tank drilled, and which one of the 3 is your favorite. I'm going to take you guys on in the lanes now so you can see these 3 bowling balls in action. In this video especially, you're going to see why the Desert Tank is my favorite bowling ball of all time and why I match up with it so well. Thank you guys for joining me as I showcase the 3 bowling balls that I absolutely never leave the house without. These 3 bowling balls are my favorite bowling balls that we have right now, and 2 of them are on my all-time favorite list. Now, as usual, I'm going to show you every single shot that I threw in this session, the good shots and the bad. I've always said it, and I believe it to be true, that it is the only way to show you what these bowling balls are truly capable of. And I want you to pay attention to how often I struck with this Desert Tank. This is the first time that I've ever struck this much with one bowling ball in a video. So as we get started in this video, I want to run through the 3 bowling balls and why they are on my favorite list. So we'll start with the Jackal Legacy. I'm really liking this Jackal Legacy when I can keep my angles a little bit more in front of me, kind of like you're seeing in this video. Most of my bowling is done on a house shot, so I typically don't need an asymmetrical solid that's going to be so strong in the front part of the lane, which is why I went with this particular layout on this Legacy. It gets through the fronts a little bit easier, and it wants to be very smooth off the back part of the lane. Because of that, it allows me to play a little bit shallower angles and keep the ball in front of me, which is what I like to do. What I'm really liking about this particular Jackal Legacy is the versatility. The other one that I've showcased before, the pin up one, is way too strong in the front part of the lane for a house shot. This pin down one isn't going to read it as early, but it's still going to create a really nice motion on the lane. Then when we transition into the Venom Shock, there's not much else that can possibly be said about how good this Venom Shock is. For me, it's the ultimate versatility ball. With a lot of surface, the ball can get really early and really smooth, and then with the out-of-box finish, that 4000, it gets through the front part of the lane very easy and creates an unbelievable motion down lane, especially when you consider that the Venom Shock is a solid. I think what makes this Venom Shock so unbelievable for me is just how good it looks on the house shot, and then when I take it onto the sport shots, just how good it still looks. If you go back and look at my 3-part sports series, the Venom Shock looked really good on all 3 patterns, and it's unbelievable on house. There's not much else that you can ask for out of a bowling ball. This is one of those rare bowling balls that is an absolute must-have in everyone's bag. And then there's the Desert Tank, or as I like to call it, the daddy ball. Of all the bowling balls that I've ever thrown in my entire life, and I can assure you that is a lot of bowling balls, I have never matched up to a ball so well like I have with this Desert Tank. The Desert Tank allows me to play in a part of the lane that I absolutely love playing, especially on a house shot. And I don't know if you're keeping track at home, but I haven't missed yet with this Desert Tank. Now obviously something like the Venom Shock will be more versatile than the Desert Tank, just because if the volume becomes too high or the pattern becomes too long, it can force the Desert Tank out of play, whereas the Venom Shock can handle the longer and the heavier volume patterns. But when this Desert Tank is in play, I have nothing, and I mean nothing, that I have ever matched up with so well, especially on this house shot. Like I've said before, most of my bowling is done on a house shot, so when I have this kind of look like I have with this Desert Tank, it is an amazing feeling. Now the next thing that I would like to talk about is what situations or what scenarios I like throwing each of these bowling balls and why. Now we'll start with the Jackal Legacy. I really like the Jackal Legacy on the higher volume patterns, or in situations where there's not a lot of friction to the right. So when I get on these longer patterns where there isn't free hook to the right, I really like this Jackal Legacy because the cover and that core can handle the higher volumes of oil with ease. Then when we get into the Venom Shock, the Venom Shock is one of those balls that seems to be in play on pretty much everything for me. I've thrown it on the really short patterns like Viper and Cheetah, even Wolf sometimes if I put enough surface on it, and then I've thrown it on Shark, which is 48 feet, and then everything in between, and it seems to be in play for me pretty much all the time, which is why the Venom Shock has always been one of my favorite bowling balls of all time. It's been one of those bowling balls, and the thing that I've always said about the Venom Shock is that it may not always be the ball that gets me the big scores, but it's always the ball that leads me to get those big scores. And what I mean by that is, the Venom Shock isn't always the ball, but because it's so versatile and I can throw it on so many different patterns, it's always a ball that I can go to figure out what ball I really need to be in. And I hope that makes sense, because I've had a hard time explaining to people what that means. And then there's the Desert Tank. Pretty much any time that there's friction to the right, I'm going to be throwing a Desert Tank. Now obviously on the very long patterns, this ball can become out of play just because the core and that cover doesn't handle the very long patterns as well. But on anything that's like, I would say 43 feet and shorter, and there's friction to the right, this ball is always going to be in play. And then the volume doesn't matter as much, because I've thrown it on Wolf, which is 34 feet I want to say, and then the volume on that pattern is very high, but because the cover will handle that higher volume, it just can't handle the longer patterns as easily. Don't forget to join the Motiv Facebook page. The last thing I'll leave you here with are the tracer lines. Well, there you have it, folks. Those are the 3 bowling balls that I never leave the house without right now. Let me know down below in the comments if you like this video, and if you want to see more videos like this in the future. Click right here to watch one of my other videos. Click right here to subscribe. Click right here to subscribe. Till next time, guys.